Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back to another franchise revisit. For those who are new, I like to make these little videos about films I enjoy and want to share. If you enjoy this, please consider giving me a thumbs up and subscribing and hitting that little bell icon to get notifications for when I put up new content, which is usually once or twice a week. Okay, as stated, we have a franchise revisit here, starting right now with Scream. In all honesty, before I, began revisiting Scream parts 1 through 4, I hadn't even seen part 5 yet. Because I wasn't really too impressed with the series as a whole. I'd loved part 1, but part 2 and part 3 I wasn't really that much of a fan of. And I didn't really remember part 4 because I'd only seen it the one time in the theater, and it was during my drinking days before heading out to the clubs for the night, so a lot of it was kind of iffy. I remember enjoying it, but absolutely no details about it. And I never got around to seeing part 5. I'd heard mixed things about it, but I just never got around to it. So, this is bound to be an interesting revisit. My voice is still kind of recovering, as you may have heard on my previous video for Creature from the Black Lagoon. I got sick again this week, and it kind of threw off, everything that I was planning to do with my videos this week. So, voice is slowly coming back, but, and so is my energy. Anyways, so let's go ahead and start with, I just wanted to do, for this franchise revisit, instead of spacing it out over 5 or 6 weeks, I wanted to do basically Scream Week. I'm going to be doing a couple of videos to cover all of these movies every couple of days leading up to Scream 6, which I hope to have that review up on Friday morning or Friday afternoon when that title releases. So let's start with Scream from 1996. So I remember when this one came out, seeing it multiple times at a theater and actually buying the Laserdisc back in the day before moving on to DVD and eventually Blu-ray. I was a really big fan for it, about it. And so for the new ones here, before we get into any spoiler information, which will come up later in the video, it is a short video, but there will be some spoiler stuff later, here's a quick synopsis for Scream from 1996. A year after the murder of her mother, a teenage girl is terrorized by a new killer who targets the girl and her friends by using horror films as part of a deadly game. So, this is a nice setup to give us, and my very, very short review would be perfect. I mean, honestly, it's a perfect film, in my opinion. At least as perfect as any film can be, because I believe that every film has aspects that one may not really take to, after all. But I say this because we get we get mystery. Who's this killer? Who's next? What is the motivation, if any? The scares, we get both jump scares and this sense of kind of being trapped and hopeless in this situation that you can't get out of, not knowing how this killer is going to come after you, or if they're going to come after you, or even why. We also get gore and violence in this, perfectly used throughout, where one is never really desensitized to any of that gore or violence, and it has that intended effect of actually scaring you and grossing you out a little bit whenever it's used. We also get comedy. Somehow they were able to put in the perfect amount of comedy to keep the no kills scenes a bit light, and kind of let your guard down. And this is mainly brought to screen by Matthew Lillard and Jamie Kennedy, but, there's a lot kind of thrown in there, such as how Henry Winkler, who has, a small role in this as a principal, brings a little bit of comedy to it as well. It's a bit self-referencing as well, or at least along the lines of horror films in general. This one kind of breaks the fourth wall a little bit, but just enough to have us understand that these characters know that some of these situations happening are similar to horror films, since horror films obviously exist in this world, and they make those comparisons mainly through Jamie Kennedy's character, who is a big horror film fan. So that little self-referential and horror movie kind of referential side is also brought in many treats for horror lovers. We get Wes Craven having a little cameo here as a janitor named Freddy, which is kind of cool. Or even, though this one I'm kind of sad to admit that I didn't catch it until recently, like literally a quarter century after this film came out, Loomis, naming a character Billy Loomis, like Dr. Loomis. I just can't believe I never caught that before. And I believe in one of the future installments we have a character with the last name of Carpenter as well, so it's nice that they throw in those little treats for the horror movie fans. Anyways, if you haven't seen this one, check it out, because it's great. I think you'll enjoy it. And then come back and see, the rest of this video. Now, the sequels I'm going to be putting up videos for as well, and they're up for interpretation. Some of them work, some of them don't, but we'll get into those in later videos. For this one, if you don't want the spoilers, go ahead and tune out and come back after you've seen Scream, and for those who've already seen it, let's go ahead and continue. So, now that that warning is out of the way, here we are with a few spoilery things that I wanted to bring up. First off, Stu and Billy, I believe they made the perfect like murder couple in a way, especially because they have different motivations. Stu is just crazy and easily manipulated, which is fine. We don't really need him to be any deeper than that to still make him scary and creepy. But having Billy be the one with the true motive in this, his mother leaving due to the affair, made this pairing more believable. If they were both written the same, if they were both written exactly the same as Stu, it just wouldn't have worked for me that well. The odds of one crazy person finding another crazy person and them just both being up to go on this killing spree for no other reason than just they're crazy. I wouldn't have been able to buy it, so I love that they had different reasons for being in there. Stu's being kind of weak and Billy's being, much more in depth. The kills were excellent, especially Drew Barrymore being taken out at the beginning of the movie. She was kind of the popular face of the trailer and the poster especially, and then boom, big star, gone in the first few minutes, violently, with gore, and that's it. There's no 1 week earlier showing, like a transition showing what led up to it. Just she's gone, dead. That's our first kill. Same thing with Rose McGowan. I felt like she would stick around a bit longer. She's they made her very likable, especially via her like banter with her brother Dewey, played by David Arquette, which also added, the right amount of comedy to this. And we also have some nice surprises with Courtney Cox, who of course was very popular at the time because, we had Ace Ventura had come out, and she's popular because of Friends by that point, I believe. Bringing her in to kind of mix things up and set that background for the Cotton Weary aspect of the story, which comes up a bit later in some of the sequels, was a bonus as well. We probably could have gone without her being in it, but I think it would have made the film a bit shallow without that character. We kind of needed her voice to kind of move certain things about the story along and plant some seeds about some of Billy's motivation, as well as what's kind of happened with Cotton. And anyways, she was definitely needed in there, and it worked very well. So yeah, for me, I believe this is just a perfect horror film for me. We've got mystery, we've got violence and gore, we've got comedy, we've got scary situations and jumps, we got an interesting story with interesting characters, and it's more than worth checking out. And speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out this first entry in my franchise revisit for Scream Week, which will continue as I dive into the first two sequels for parts 2 and 3 in my next video. How did they build off of that initial story and try to continue it? How well did it work? So be sure to subscribe and hit that little bell icon so you get notifications for when I put up those future installments, and I will see you in the next video.